So this is a quick rig rundown of a fresh new build. The white tape's on the wheels because I'm going to do the underdrive and just check and see if it works. This is a Meus MB24 kit for the chassis and the body. And I've just completed it. Quite pleased. So, what do we got? I'm still waiting for wheels and tyres. I'm going to change the wheels and tyres. They will be bigger and grippier tyres. Although, have to be honest, these are the standard SCX24 Bronco wheels and tyres. Actually, it runs really well with these. So, verdict's out. It could do with a little bit wider stance. It's modelled on an Ultra 4 racing truck. And they do have a wider track width on the axles. Anyway, there we go. So we'll open her up. Just unplug the lights. There we go. And so inside, I've got an FR Sky ANT receiver, ANT protocol. It was the smallest one I thought they did. I think they do one smaller than this, and it's a bit big. So the servo wires are plugged in there. It could do with being a bit smaller. Oops, focus. So the servo wires are plugged in there. It was kind of the only position I could mount it where it kind of fit. We have the Furitek Lizard Pro, which is a Bluetooth ESC, which is really lovely. Really nice ESC. And we've got the Venom brushless motor. So this comes as a starter kit. This and the motor plate, the mounting plate, all come as a starter kit to drop into the SCX24. Really, really lovely motor. It'll do a really slow crawl, as you'll see in the running video. Wiring is a little bit messy at the moment. I've kind of zip tied some of it up out of the way. I need to zip tie some more of it out of the way. The main wiring, the main kind of load of wiring is from the servo, which is a Reefs 99. Beautiful servo, really smooth, very quiet, unbelievably good quality. We've got the Injora gearbox, because we didn't start with an SCX24. This was built from the ground up. So selecting and sourcing parts and literally built from scratch from parts. Axles wise, these are stunning axles. These are the Meus Isokinetic Axles, and I don't know whether you can see, but the steering angle is just extreme. They claim 51 degrees. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a bit over that. I've had to turn the dual rate down because it's a bit too extreme. We've mounted the steering arm on the back of the servo horn, because when it was in front it kind of stuck out too far. This way it does clear the servo. There's no kind of impact on anything. It's really, really lovely. Links wise, these are Injora high clearance links. I've paid for all this myself. It's not a sponsored video. And it's an Injora brass skid plate. The skid plates, the plastic skid plates, come with the Meus 24 kit, MB24 kit, and it's just lovely. Suspension wise, these were just shocks I had. They're very limited on travel. There's not a lot of flex on the rig at all. Weirdly though, it doesn't seem to matter. Because there's not a lot of flex, it doesn't unload the suspension a lot, which means it doesn't tip over quite as easily, even though it's quite top heavy, because this body is a hard body. It's ABS plastic. It's not Lexan. So weirdly, having not a lot of suspension travel doesn't seem to harm it at all. In fact, if anything, it probably helps. So there's not a lot of flex. What's a good thing to stick it on? if I put it on here, you can see there's hardly any flex at all. It just kind of cocks its leg. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't seem to care. With all my trucks, I set them up with droop suspension. So they're set up the wrong way round. So whereas a normal shock, the spring is on top. Oops, there we go. With a normal shock, the spring is on top, and when the car hits a bump, it kind of rides up. On droop suspension, it works the other way, and the spring's actually sucking the body towards the axle, which means you get a better angle of approach and descent, and you get a better side hill as well, usually, in theory. Seems to work though, and I quite like the droop setup. I like them sitting low. Has got a spare tyre in the back, probably not great for performance, you know, makes it a bit back heavy. But these axles are fantastic. The C-hubs, the carriers, the knuckles, never quite sure what they are. They're weighted on the front, so there's quite a lot of weight on the front, so the point of balance is quite far forward on the chassis. So on my finger, it's kind of there. It wants to tip forward a lot, which is great. So there we go. I was going to show you the underdrive, which comes with the axle kit. They give you loads of bits with the axle kit. It comes with the servo tray, an adjustable servo tray, really nice adjustable servo tray. I'm not sure whether you can see it, but it comes with this adjustable servo tray. So there's a bunch of holes you can move the ears back, and they swing in and out so you can fit a wider or narrower servo. And the adjustable servo tray is really, really nice. Aluminium. I presume it's machined or cast, not quite sure which. And obviously that's the front link mount as well. And then on the rear axle, you do get the really nice adjustable rear link mount. So there's a series of holes in that, and you can mount the links in various positions. Beautiful, beautiful axles. Really, really like the axles. I had a bit of an issue because it comes with the underdrive gear, and I stupidly put it in the front thinking it was an overdrive gear, and it's not, and it doesn't work in the front because these axles have got a double CVD. I'm not sure whether you can see it, but instead of a normal constant velocity joint, it's got a double. How can I get that on camera? Not sure I can. So just in there, where you normally have one joint there, it's actually got two. And what happens when it steers to its full extreme, it pulls the drive shaft out away from the gear in the center. So the underdrive gear that they give you has only got quite narrow kind of sides on it, whereas the drive gear that's in there has got kind of wide ears on it to stop the drive shaft popping out. So I did put the underdrive gear in the front thinking it was an overdrive gear, and of course one of the wheels stopped turning because the drive shaft pulled out. If you get the Meus Isokinetic Axles, you need to put the underdrive gear in the rear axle where it doesn't have an issue at all. Yeah, so just stupid user error on my part. The build went together pretty easily. The chassis and the body are beautiful to set up and put together. They're really, really nicely done. The instructions are pretty cool. So I'll show the instructions if I can find them. I haven't thrown them away, honest. I have put them in a box, and it's not the right box. So the instructions are really, really lovely. Just lovely exploded diagram. Camera up a bit. Really nice exploded diagram. Tells you where all the screws go. If you can't quite make out where something goes, you just look ahead on the numbers, and usually it's at a different angle, so you can kind of work things out, which is really, really nice. Chassis. I have left out this plate, and I'll explain why in a minute. I've taken it out. So there you go. All the parts down the bottom. So you've got a full parts list, screw lengths, everything. Really, really nicely done. So Why did I take the piece out of the chassis? Well, where I had a bit of an issue is there's not a lot of space in here to fit all the electronics in. So originally I wanted the motor there. I wanted this the other way round, but I hit a bit of a snag, and the snag was that the motor kind of was really close to this plate, which is the body mounting plate. But the other problem was, which was more severe really, was that the lid wouldn't close, and it wouldn't close because of these wires that kind of come vertically out of the brushless motor. Now they are bent forward, and they're bent forward because the body won't close unless they're bent forward, basically. Simple as that. But the other way round, it just wouldn't fit. And the reason for that is on the underside of the two, driver and passenger, they're quite chunky. They stick out quite a long way, so there's not a lot of space. So to get the profile down, I had to mount the motor the other way around, which is more traditional to how the SEX24 motor is mounted. It's mounted the same way. But then it wouldn't clear this plate. This plate's originally designed as the battery plate in the SEX24, or sorry, in the Meus MB24. So I took the battery plate out and I put another one of these standoffs in place. There's two standoffs on the rear. They don't hit the axle or anything. There's plenty of clearance, and it's still rigid and strong, so that kind of worked. So it does mean that the weight isn't quite as far forward as I would have liked with the motor, but it means that the body closes properly. The other problem I had with the body closing, I thought it was a clearance issue, so I've had to clear these two corners. It actually wasn't a clearance issue, it was user error. I hadn't screwed the interior in place, and it was pushing the body back up. Now, as long as there's not a plug in the way, because the plugs do get in the way, it does close, and it closes up really nicely. There's Velcro on the front, and it closes really, really nicely to the point where, you know, it's properly shut and sits flat. So really happy with that. Now I've got that working. For a battery, I would have loved to have run a battery like that, but there just isn't anywhere to put it. It's an impossibility to run a bigger battery. There's just no space. So what I've done is I've used a 2S drone battery, 300 milliamp. It doesn't last long, which is a bit of a shame. With the brushless motor, it really doesn't last long, and the LEDs are insane. The LEDs really, really, really kick out a lot of light. I'll show you in a sec. And I've just Velcroed the bottom of it, and that does fit. So if you get one of these and you're wondering what battery to run, I would highly suggest running a short, slim pack. Velcro on the side, sits in there. It's not in the way of the motor. The motor's on the other side away from the battery on purpose, because the motor does get a little bit warm, and I do worry about lithium ion batteries next to heat sources. It's probably not a great idea. So that plugs in really, really nicely now, and all I do is just tuck the wires under that front body mount. And then the lights, the insanity that is the lights on this, it really could do with a light switch, and I will try and get one, because they're just so bright. It would be nice to turn them off with a remote. They are just insanely bright lights, but they do look the part. You know, they're pretty cool. As for the servo, it's a real fast servo. Loads of power, loads of grunt in the servo. Super quick, and just lovely. As for the overdrive, underdrive, and the crawl, so this starter set from Furitek is pretty incredible. It's my first brushless RC car motor in a crawler. I've had them in faster cars at work. I don't own a faster car. Well, that's a lie. I own a Charisma GT. Was it a GT4? Are they called? A little Charisma. That's got a brushless motor. But that's a quick car. And the problem with brushless, as far as I understand it, is trying to get them to go slowly. So this is kind of my underdrive demo. if the bits of tape will stick on, if I can get them level. So for those of you that are new to crawlers, there's two ways of doing it. Well, three ways of doing this. You can have both wheels turning at the same speed and the same rate, and that obviously gives even traction between the front and the rear axle. You can use overdrive, which means the front axle spins more revolutions than the rear axle, which is good. It helps you pull up things. It helps you crawl up things and hook over the top of them. The problem with that is you end up with the axle speed higher, and then the other option is to do underdrive. So the rear axle is slowed down by the gearing, basically. So we should see that these don't stay in phase, and this one turns more than this one. That's what we're hoping for. To show you how slowly it will crawl, I'll try and do my best slow crawl. A little bit of slack in there, but that is how slowly it will crawl, which is insane. So that's on 2S. I believe that the Furitek Lizard Pro, the ESC, is capable of 3S. But maybe the motor isn't, on the basis that the motor is probably too high a kV for 3S. So it'll go too fast, basically, if you put it on 3S. Might be fun, though. The real trucks are Ultra 4 Broncos. They are desert racers and rock crawlers in one, I guess. So at the moment, those two wheels look like they're spinning together. I'll speed it up a bit, we'll be here forever. But now you can see that the front wheel's kind of ahead. And for every revolution, the front wheel's actually turning more than the rear wheel. So that's your underdrive. The rear axle's turning less revolutions than the front axle. Very smooth motor. Very, very smooth motor, and in a crawl it's almost silent. Look how slowly it'll crawl. And you might think, well, it won't do that on the ground. It won't crawl like that on the floor. You know, there's no load on the axles. Well, the trouble is, it's really hard to see. Now, you'll have to forgive my driving now. But it will crawl under load in exactly the same way. Super slow. Probably go a bit slower, it's my driving. You plenty of punch when you're on it. And there we go. So that is the wonderful Meus. I have no idea how you pronounce it, but it's the MB24 from Meus. The chassis and the body, they are £35 unpainted. I bought unpainted and then did the paint job. I'm quite proud of my green flame paint job. So I airbrushed that. Lots of clear coat on it. I'm trying to turn it around. There's not enough table. Even with the extreme clear angles. And it's knocking everything off my table. So paint job is airbrushed. And to do the paint job, all I've done is I've rubbed it down with a Scotch pad, a red Scotch pad, just to get the shine off the plastic, the ABS. I've undercoated it with a primer. It was a brown primer, a model primer. Then I've sprayed it black. It was Createx Colours, Wicked Colours black. Then the airbrushing, I've sprayed white under here. So this is actually white paint. And then a green candy over the top of it. And then I've used Createx Colours UVLS Gloss Clear to clear coat it. You never get it quite as shiny as a 2K clear coat, but it's not bad. I'm quite pleased with it. It's a little bit satin, not quite as glossy as I wanted. But yeah, quite happy with it. Still to go, new wheels and tyres. I've ordered Injora wheels in green, of course, because it'll match. And some axle extenders. It'll probably put about 5 to 7 mil on the width of the track, and that might be too much, so we'll have a play with it and see. The wheels will be metal bead locks. The tyres I've ordered, I think they're Injora, an MT Rock tyre, maybe something like that. So we'll get them fitted when they arrive, and that's it really. It's been great fun building this, and I have an SCX24 Bronco. It's lovely. It doesn't perform as well as this, to be honest. It's not quite there, even though I've modified it a lot. So on the Bronco, the SCX24, the axial SCX24, it probably still needs more weight down low to offset the weight of the body. This body isn't light. It is hard plastic. It is a hard body, but it's lighter than the SCX24 Bronco. So yeah, paint didn't go perfectly. I've got a few kind of runs on the bumper. Really happy with the roll cage though. That turned out great. That was sprayed with a primer, a brown primer. Then it was sprayed white, and then again I just used the candy over the top of it. I just got it a bit wet on the front bumper, which is a separate part. It was really hard to hold. It's a bit of a shame, but you know. And then the interior painting is terrible. I probably need to repaint the driver and the passenger. They're not great. I got some runs because I did it with a brush. You couldn't really airbrush that, so maybe I need to go back over them. But yeah, so that's it. My Meus, I don't know how to say it. MB24 SCX24 based kind of truck, but not really many SCX24 parts on it. In fact, the only SCX24 parts on it that have come from a stock SCX24 are the wheels, and they're getting replaced. So once they're done, it's a custom build, but it is really a custom build. Why did I custom build? Quite simply, there's a lot of waste. If you buy an SCX24 off the shelf and you modify it, you're taking a lot of parts off the truck. And to me, I was just kind of like, it's not cheaper. It's not cheaper to do it this way, but you end up with less waste. You end up with less bits left over. And that's quite nice. You know, you're not wasting bits of plastic. You haven't bought stuff you don't need. It's my first custom build of a 24th scale truck, but I have built a 110 truck, 110 scale thing, which I call the pig because it was a tough learning curve. I build FPV drones. They're actually easier to build than these. There's more kind of computer bits. There's more programming, but they are actually easier to build, I think, than a 1/10 scale custom truck. In the 1/24th scale, these smaller trucks, they're actually not bad, because if you buy anything that's SCX24 compatible, it kind of fits. So everything kind of fits. Like I say, the only issue that you need to be aware of with this body, I'm going to unplug those lights that do my head in, is the lack of space. You know, that it has to sit super low onto the chassis. All your electronics have to be super low. I'll just move the battery out of the way so you can see again. You know, everything has to be below that line, if you can see it, that line. So if you take a straight edge, if you want to check for yourself, take a straight edge, put it across. As long as your electronics sit below that, you're good to go. In the instructions, they do say to mount the stock ESC. If you're doing this from an SCX24 and you're going to use the stock ESC and the stock receiver unit, the big box, it's supposed to sit upwards here. So it sits up. If you imagine that's the ESC, it sits up like that. I just don't know how that fits. I guess it fits up into that hole. There's kind of like a hole there, if that makes sense. But I think really, if you're gonna do one of these, you may as well build it custom. I've used Injora parts, Meus parts, and that's it. That's all that's on this truck. and I'm really, really pleased with it. Injora are on fire with the SX24. All their parts are beautifully machined. There's no fitting issues. They come with loads of hardware, spare bits, lots and lots of spare bits, and it just makes life really good. So nice one, Injora. Thank you very much for that. And there we go. As for the controller, I'm using this, and I can't even remember what it's called. It's an FrSky thing, and I just can't even remember what it's called. But it uses the ANT protocol. It's a really nice controller. It's a bit big for this little truck, but it's got really nice resolution, and you can tune it, so you can put throttle curves on it, things like that. I've had to change the wheel because a young person at work accidentally broke the wheel, so I've replaced the wheel. But other than that, these controllers are great. It's a GP7, FrSky GP7, I think, something like that. Very, very tunable though. Lots of buttons, lots of switches if you need them. It's not bad. Like I say, the only issue really is it's too big to drive like one-handed. I don't know, there's a number there, but I can't read it. My eyesight's too bad. Whatever that says, it's one of those. But I use that with my 1/10 scale car. So there we go. I wanted something I could drive with my partner's car. She absolutely adores this. This is Mimsy. Mimsy is an Element Enduro 24. Totally stock, apart from it's lost its front bumper. This thing shouldn't work. This shouldn't do what it does. It's really capable. It does really well off-road. Probably not as well as that, but for some reason it's insanely good on the rocks. I don't know why, but she loves it. This is called Mimsy. So there's Mimsy. There's the MB24. And there you go. As I say, not sponsored, bought all out my own money. You know, there's no weirdness in this. There's no affiliate links, nothing like that. I do this as a hobby. I'm not interested in doing it for anything else. I make the videos just to help someone, maybe, hopefully, or inspire someone to go and do it, because it's great fun. It's stupid, it's silly, it's little toy trucks, but it's great fun. Anyway, peace be with you. Take care. Bye.